DABS Utah presents the Governor's Monthly News Conference, an exchange between Utah reporters and Governor Spencer Cox.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all of you again. It's been a little while since we had an opportunity to be together, and I'm excited to take some questions from you. But before we do that, just a couple updates that I think the people of Utah will find interesting. Starting with water, just want to give a quick update on our state water situation right now. The short answer is that we are in much better shape than last year. The majority of the state is no longer in drought. Utah has currently received 138% of normal precipitation, and even with the hotter July, the record snowpack kept soil moisture high, which is really good news as we head into the fall and we have more water in the forecast. That means very little runoff soaked into the soil and instead went into refilling our streams, lakes, and most importantly, our reservoirs. Now, critical number, our statewide reservoir storage right now is at 80%, which is awesome. That means we have a leg up on next year, which we're very excited about. Normal for this period for mid-August is around 64%. And this time last year, you'll remember we were right about 50%. So much higher than normal and significantly higher than last year. Those of you that follow the Great Salt Lake levels will know that in June we peaked at about 5.5 feet above our record low in November, and the lake salinity levels have risen as well. We're certainly not out of the clear when it comes to the Great Salt Lake. We would like to double that number. It would be another 5.5 feet above where we were in June, and we're working towards that. Of course, with our new Great Salt Lake Commissioner Brian Steed, who started in July. He's been on the job now for a little over a month, and is working with partners all across the region to work on a plan to fill the Great Salt Lake. We appreciate our state water managers who worked so hard to capture the water from this year's record-breaking snowpack and guiding it to our lakes and reservoirs, and especially thanks to Utahns who conserve so much, watering less, planting water-wise landscaping, fixing leaks, and this commitment is really making a difference. I encourage our farmers especially, and we've been reaching out to them, to look into our agriculture optimization program, and residents to check out slowtheflow.org for water-saving practices. Working together, we know we can continue to become even more drought resistant. Next thing I want to touch on just briefly, we do have an election coming up, and that it's a big one for our municipalities. It's a big one also for the second congressional district. Unexpected, but we do have that race going with the recent announcement that Congressman Stewart is leaving. So, just a couple key dates. Early in-person voting starts next Tuesday, August 22nd. So check with your county clerk for hours. And the last day you can register to vote and receive a mail-in ballot is August 25th. The primary election day is September 5th. And of course, ballots are ready to be arriving in your mailboxes soon. So be watching for your ballot and make sure you cast your ballot and get your voice heard. I want to give a special thanks to all of our volunteers, a special recognition to our county clerks, Lieutenant Governor Henderson and her office, who work so hard to administer our elections. Last thing I just want to mention, our Department of Alcoholic and Beverage Services today is launching its new online system. We're only about 20 years too late, but better now than later. This is something that we've pushed really hard for when I took office, and I'm grateful for the Director of Department of Alcoholic and Beverage Services, Tiffany Clayson, who has been working to modernize that system. This was a real priority initiative for all restaurants, bars, hotels, gas stations, and grocery stores here in the state of Utah. What that means is that they can apply and make payments completely online, getting rid of the very antiquated paper system. It's a huge win for our hospitality businesses here across the state and for consumers. And so thanks to everyone at DABS who's been working so hard to modernize. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Governor, right now the environmental groups are rallying at the Capitol calling for an end to plans for an inland port hub near the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. Should the inland port be built so close to the Great Salt Lake, given the trouble that you just noted it's in?
Yeah, so I feel great about the direction of the inland port, especially the changes and directions that have been made over the past year. I feel very confident with the leadership there, and that this is going to be the most environmentally friendly inland port anywhere in the country. It's something that we're all committed to and working towards. And you'll see the partnership with Salt Lake City now has greatly improved, has moved from an adversarial kind of relationship to a true partnership. I appreciate the mayor and the city council. We've been able to end the litigation portion of that and to move forward in a very positive way. And so I don't have concerns about the location as long as we're building it the right way, and I feel confident that that is happening.
And how do you balance the desire for a port versus saving the lake? It seems like the development keeps encroaching upon the lake.
I don't think those two have anything to do with each other, Ben. I don't. They just don't. We're going to fill the Salt Lake, and we're building in places where the lake doesn't go, or the bird refuge. These are places where trains have been before, and where trains will continue to go.
Governor, I would like to know your reaction or opinion regarding the Ron Gibson case about the alleged assault. Because if this happening in the farm of the president of the Utah Farm Bureau, this can be happening in other farms in the state, across states. So where the majority workers are Hispanic. Yeah. So what is your government doing about this?
Yeah, thank you. So obviously very concerned about the allegations that we've seen. There's always a presumption of innocence, and we'll allow that to take place, that legal proceeding to take place. I do understand that there's a video out there that is very troubling as well. What I can see is this. We are involved in that investigation. In fact, Weber County asked that the state take over that investigation, and so I know that is happening right now. Our Department of Public Safety is directly involved in the investigation. So I haven't gotten any reports back from that. So I can't speak to that, but I can speak generally to the allegations, and that is that I sincerely hope that we treat everyone with the dignity and respect that they deserve, and that includes especially those who are here, our migrant workers who come here and work here and are so important in our agriculture industry. As you know, I have an agriculture background, and I care deeply about our farmers and ranchers and the people that work on those farms and ranches. People who grew up here and people who have come from other countries to work here to do the labor that maybe some others don't want to do. And it is critical that they get paid, and that they get paid on time, that they get paid what they're promised to get paid, and that they are, again, treated with dignity and respect. So when there are allegations that is not happening, we take that very seriously. I don't care what their background is. I don't care where they come from. We do take that very seriously, and so we will, again, we'll be continuing those investigations, and if there is criminal wrongdoing, we'll make sure that the people responsible are held accountable.
Okay, we do have some remote reporters joining us, so we're going to go ahead to Chris Reed with St. George News. Chris, go ahead with your question.
And good morning, Governor. About a week ago, a national monument was declared in the northern part of the Grand Canyon, right where the Arizona-Utah border is, and you've expressed your opposition to that. How does this jive with what tribal leaders say is their culture to protect the land versus the needs of mining and industry?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Important to note, and I need to note that monument does not come into Utah. So that monument is on the Arizona side, but does impact Utahns, and that's why we've taken such an interest in it. We have Utahns in the southern part of our state who have grazing interests, other economic interests in that area, and so it definitely impacts Utahns. I wrote a letter to the president, had a conversation directly with the president about my concerns about that monument and other large landscape-sized monuments. Anytime we're talking hundreds of thousands, millions, in this case, of acres, I believe very strongly that it is a direct violation of the Antiquities Act. And again, we have a lawsuit not on that monument, but on monuments in our state that is now on appeal to the 10th Circuit that we ultimately believe will be appealed to the Supreme Court. We do have an entry in another case that was dismissed from the Chief Justice expressing some concern that these large land scale monuments do not match up with the language of the Antiquities Act statute. And so that's very important, and that's where all of this hinges. And again, the language is very clear that the monument must be the smallest size necessary to protect the artifacts or the antiquities that are at risk. And I don't believe millions of acres does that at all. I think I think just the average person would agree that just a clear, plain reading of the statute does not match up with that. Now, to that direct question, though, with our Native American citizens who are concerned about protecting the land. I share their desire to protect the land. Sadly, this does not do that. I can tell you, as I toured Bears Ears with members of the Navajo Nation and other nations, what I heard over and over again is, we're so grateful for this monument designation because we want to protect our sacred lands. And then in the same breath, they said, but you know what? I hate that all of these people are coming here. Do you know why all of these people are coming there? Because of the monument designations. It has the exact opposite effect of what the president is intending to do. While the heart may be in the right place, that is not what happens. There is no additional funding that comes. And what I was told was more artifacts are being destroyed because of this monument designation. And I was told this by Native Americans who wanted the monument designation, that more of the artifacts are being destroyed, more of the landscapes are being trampled on because people are coming from all over the country and all over the world to see this new monument, people who never would have come there before. There are other ways to protect those things. And in fact, on the lands that we're talking about, those land use designations were already in place to protect those artifacts and the lands that are so important to our native tribes. Now, specifically when it comes to the mining issue, there are parts of those lands that absolutely need to be completely protected, and others that look just like random sagebrush with no artifacts there, and that happen to have some very critical minerals that are really important to decarbonizing our atmosphere, taking CO2 out of the atmosphere, and to energy production in our state, in our country. And so you can't say in one breath that you believe in climate change, that you're desperate to have more electric vehicles, that we have to have better and more efficient and cleaner energy production, and then say we can't mine any of the critical minerals that are necessary to do all of those things, and instead outsourcing that to China and to Chinese-owned mines in Africa, to places like Russia and other geopolitical foes that are hell-bent on destroying our country. And so all of this, again, on paper, in a fairy tale, maybe makes sense that we just protect the land and nobody gets to touch it ever. But when you look in practical terms, that is exactly not what is happening. Instead, we put a bullseye on, we attract people to come and trample over these sacred lands, and we can't get to the critical minerals that are so desperately needed to do the very things that the people claiming that they want to protect this land are anxious to do. So that's my response, and I think there's a better way to do all of those things.
Sounds like Chris has a follow-up. Go ahead,
Chris.
Sure. And on another subject, back in April, we talked over at Desert Hills High School, actually, about this. And it was about what was then 34 indictments against President Trump. And as an attorney, you expressed your concern that what was a hush money case was turning, as you said, a misdemeanor into a felony. Now that there are 91 criminal charges against the former president, including defrauding the U.S., racketeering, interfering with the 2020 election, do you still have those concerns?
Well, obviously, the charges that have come since that initial case that we talked about are different. They're much more serious and deeply concerning. Now, look, I will say the same thing I said on another case earlier. There is a presumption of innocence in our country, and that applies to the President of the United States. And I'm grateful for a legal system that has withstood some very significant challenges over the past couple of years, especially around the 2020 election and others. And I have an immense amount of faith in the legal system and its ability to hold up during this process as well. And so the president, like any of us, will have his opportunity to present his defense. His attorneys will have an opportunity to argue in court, and I look forward to seeing what happens with these cases. I will say, though, it is a very dark day for our country, a very sad day. Anytime that we have these types of allegations, and anytime we have an indictment of a former president, and so again, deeply concerned. I don't have time or the opportunity to go through all 90 of those counts across 4, I guess, different jurisdictions now, different indictments. Some of them I disagree with strongly, that I think are a mistake and an overreach. Others of them seem appropriate and very serious, but all of them are deeply troubling, and I hope we can find a way through this as a nation.
Governor, there is currently a ballot initiative, citizen ballot initiative, that's been proposed to sort of privatize, really, liquor sales in Utah, allowing wine and spirits in grocery stores. Do you think the state should get out of the business of selling liquor and leave it up to private industry?
I think the system we have right now is an appropriate system. I'm supportive of where we are, with some caveats and changes, and those are changes that I've been trying to implement over the past couple of years to again make it more user friendly, to make it more business friendly. We're not the only navigate that, to help them do it the right way. Most of them want to do it the right way. If they mess up, it's not because they were trying to, it's because they didn't know, or it's too complicated. So by trying to simplify that and then helping people do it the right way instead of trying to catch them and in doing something wrong is just a much better way to run a state. And I think people are starting to notice that mindset change.
Back to the Trump indictments. Yeah. In a previous time, 91 felony counts against someone would be a death knell for a political career. Yeah. Do you think it's appropriate for Donald Trump to continue to run for president when he's facing so many counts?
Well, ultimately, we the people get to decide that. Anyone can run for president that meets the definition under the Constitution, and so he's certainly entitled to run. He also happens to be the front runner right now in the Republican Party. I will say that does trouble me for sure, but less so that he's deciding to run, and more so at the support that he's getting. One reason is just political. I like to win elections. I like when Republicans win elections. I desperately think we need a Republican president, and I would like the next president in 2024, in the 2024 election starting in 2025, to be a Republican. And I don't think that Donald Trump can win the presidency as the Republican nominee for the reasons that you mentioned. Also, the polling just shows that that his approval rating is so low right now that it would be very hard to change that. And so that's one reason. I think we have some incredible candidates, and I certainly hope. I hate the system by which we nominate candidates. I hate that Iowa and New Hampshire kind of get to decide for the rest of us. That doesn't make any sense to me, and I certainly don't think anyone would design a system like that. Any logical person would design a system like that. And so, but right now, I'm desperately hoping that our good Republican friends in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada will take a good hard look at some of the many other candidates we have and choose someone else.
Governor, you said you wanted to support a governor in the presidential race.
Yeah.
There's now 6 current or former governors. Is there one you're endorsing or leaning towards?
I endorse all of them. I mean that sincerely. Again, it's so early right now, but I think there are definite upsides to all 6 of them, current and former governors, and I think all of them would do an amazing job as president.
Governor, the Utah GOP or the SEC is adjourning this, they're coming together this weekend, and they're voting on a resolution to censure Amy Winder Newton for her involvement with Equality Utah. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's ridiculous, and the person who filed that, and again, anybody can do that. That's fine, but it was funny to me. He was seeking the same endorsement, and so it's a non-issue in my eyes. I think Councilmember Newton's response, if you haven't had a chance to read it, I think you should. I think it was brilliantly put together, and I suspect that issue will go away on Saturday.
Okay, we'll go to another remote reporter, Sophia Fisher with Moab Times Independent. Go ahead with your question, Sophia.
Hi there. As I'm sure you know, people in the state received their property tax notices in recent weeks, and many in Grand County are reporting steep rises. I mean, I've heard increases of up to 300, 400%. Are you concerned with the steep rise in residential and commercial property taxes? And if so, are there any plans to revisit the formula used to calculate these taxes to give people some relief?
Yeah, thank you, Sophia, and it's great to have you. It's great to have Moab represented here today. We appreciate you joining us remotely. That does concern me, for sure. That's a very significant increase. I would have to know a little bit more about what is causing that increase in Moab. What I will say is many jurisdictions last year saw a steep increase in their property taxes, and that actually had to do definitely with the formulation, but the way that property taxes are calculated, even though there wasn't a rise in the tax itself in the amount that local governments were receiving, what happened was there's a rebalancing that happens every year as municipalities look at the value of properties, and in large part because of the pandemic and remote work, the value of commercial properties decreased significantly, which meant that and again, correspondingly, the value of residential properties increased significantly, and so that valuation threw things off and caused again a steep increase for many municipalities. We're not seeing that in as many municipalities this year, so that's why I would have to see if Moab is a one-off and what are causing those increases. Does it have to do with a school board decision to raise taxes? Is there a truth in taxation issue that's happening within the county or one of the other taxing entities? I'm always concerned about rising taxes and the ability to pay for those taxes. That's why we've had, since I've been governor, over $1 billion in tax decreases at the state level. Again, property taxes are mostly done at the local level, and so those are decisions that are being made by county commissioners, by school boards, and elected officials at that area. So I usually don't kind of dip into those decisions. I let people hold their elected officials accountable, but I'm certainly willing and actually had proposed a 1-year decrease in property tax across the state, kind of a rebate to help everyone who was seeing that big increase last year. That did not make it through the legislature. We did get tax decreases in other areas, and so yes, I'm concerned and always willing to look at that valuation process.
Okay, that is all the time we have for our television broadcast. I want to thank you so much for joining us for the Governor's Monthly News Conference. Okay, and we will continue
Brian
streaming.
Had a question.
Yeah, back to the lawsuits against the National Monument designations. The state is spending millions of dollars outsourcing those lawsuits to firms outside of the state. Do you think that that's appropriate, or should that be handled here? Because it's costing taxpayers at least $2 million, if not more.
Yeah. So obviously, we love when we can give that business to in-state law firms, handle it directly within the Attorney General's office. This is certainly a big one, and as we know, we're preparing to go directly to the Supreme Court, and the decision was made that we needed to have a little more expertise, and so there was a process. An RFP was issued, and several law firms within and without the state, I know, applied for that RFP. I wasn't directly involved in that or the decision making there, but I do feel comfortable with the firm that was selected, who does have some expertise. It's a fairly narrow expertise when it comes to these type of appeals and these type of cases, and so I think we're better off making sure we have the best possible representation, even if it costs just a little bit more.
Governor, Utah's aging population is definitely growing in the state. However, there's very limited housing resources for them. For example, Park City doesn't even have an assisted living facility within their borders. And a lot of the older Utahns live in more smaller counties. So what can the executive branch and the legislative branch do to better bolster housing accessibility to this growing population in the state? Yeah,
thank you. It's something I'm concerned about. We, being the youngest state in the nation, we're blessed with a different set of challenges historically. But even that being the case, we have this kind of what they call the silver tsunami that's coming as baby boomers are aging now and moving into the retirement years, and then kind of post-retirement and struggling with health care and housing. We have set aside money for housing in the low income area, and we're using some of that. I do believe there's a newer facility that is going to be open. It's a former motel that will be opening to an aging population for those that are struggling with shelter, and we're working with Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, and other municipalities on those things. We desperately need more of these care facilities, nursing homes, different levels of care, and we need them in lots of different places. I was not aware that Park City doesn't have a facility like that, and I would hope that again our municipalities are working there. It is a business model decision as well, and certainly making sure that we have the funding necessary through insurance and other mechanisms to pay for our seniors who are going to be needing that service. That's going to be very critical. But this is one of those issues that I think our legislature and, again, the executive branch, we're going to have to start being much more engaged in, because it's coming. And it's not just housing, it's healthcare, it's nutrition, it's all of those things that impact people as they start to hit in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we have a wave of them coming, and I'm not sure we're completely, I don't know that any state is completely prepared for kind of what's on the horizon there.
Governor, you mentioned that it's too early to pick a single candidate in the Republican presidential primary, but we have our 2nd congressional district primary coming up. Do you have a candidate that you prefer or would endorse in that election? Yeah,
so I won't be making an endorsement in that. I know all 3 of the candidates very well. I've worked with all 3 of them. They're all good and capable people. I certainly have a preference, and I would just say that I would love to have some representation off of the Wasatch Front. I'm a rural guy. I'm from south of that kind of Payson-Dixon line, as we refer to it sometimes, and we don't have a member of Congress who's lived south of there. So, obviously that sounds like I'm endorsing someone. I just think it's good to have some representation off the Wasatch Front once in a while. And we have one candidate who lives off of there, but this is not an official endorsement. That's more of just a rural geography thing that I think is important. I think all of them could actually do the job. And I'm friends with all 3 of them. Bruce is a great guy. He's represented the state very well as the national committee man for a long time. I served with Becky in the legislature and had a great relationship with her as well. And so they're all very capable, and I think we're very lucky to have 3 candidates who are just that capable. Celeste, having worked with Congressman Stewart, she can hit the ground running faster than anybody else. She's been involved in all of the issues. I mean, she's literally worked in that office, and is unbelievably talented. And so it kind of depends on what people are looking for. And I think we're very lucky to have 3 wonderful candidates.
Governor, this week the Utah Republican Party informed the Lieutenant Governor's office that they will not be participating in a statewide presidential primary and will instead use a presidential preference poll at neighborhood caucuses. What are your thoughts on this move?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. We did this not last election, but the 2016 election, and it was positive in that it really drove caucus attendance. I think one of the problems we have with the caucus convention system is that not enough people show up and participate, and when that's the case, you don't get a good representation of the Republican Party, and we've certainly seen that in elections. A great example was Governor Herbert's election in 2016, when he only got, I think, 45% of the vote at convention, lost by 10 points, but won by 44 points in the primary. Again, showing that the delegates did not represent the Republican Party at all when it came to those numbers. And so I do think that this could be helpful in getting more people there. I think we had, if I remember right, back in 2020, we had incredible turnout at the caucuses. Some of you, I think, some people in Utah have forgotten how that actually turned out. We're one of the last states always, so we don't get a big say in how the primaries turn out. But if you remember right, there were only 3 candidates left at that time, and Ted Cruz won by a very large margin, and again, I think people have forgotten that Donald Trump actually finished 3rd, which was, I think, a surprise, and still a surprise to most people to learn that he was well below the former governor of Ohio. Is that right? Kasich, I think sorry, it's been a long time. I think it was Kasich who finished second. And so yeah, I think it's great. It does save money that we don't have to have a presidential primary, which is good for the taxpayers as well.
Do you worry that it prevents more people from being able to weigh in on the nomination?
Well, I would if it mattered, and hopefully it will matter. But again, historically, by the time we get to us, it doesn't matter nearly as much.
But you can't say that because we're a Super Tuesday state this year.
That's true. So it may matter more this year. It absolutely may matter more this year. But again, I'm hoping the presidential primary participation, even when we go through the normal process, is very low. Voter turnout is very low for that. And so I love people getting together. It is one of the concerns I've always had with the caucus system, is that if you can't show up on a random Tuesday night, in March, that it's hard to get it's hard to participate. So that is always a concern. We look to try to find some ways for people to have an absentee ballot for their caucus as well, and we'll work with the party to see how that works out. But again, we'll see how it turns out this year, and then we can make decisions going forward.
Governor, earlier this year, you said the state was planning to sue social media companies. That was nearly 8 months ago. When does the state plan to file a lawsuit? Yeah, so we kind of are already in the middle of that with TikTok. Obviously, that was the first one. We're taking some preliminary steps, and we've been requesting information from them in preparing those lawsuits. They refused to give us that information, so we have taken them to court. So that's kind of a first preliminary step moving towards a potential lawsuit. I've met recently with our attorneys internally to have discussions about what that looks like as they are preparing that. The Consumer Affairs is working in this space as well. There is some multi-state litigation that is being worked on as well, and so we're having conversations there as well to decide, what piece will Utah take, and where will we participate in a multi-state litigation, and those are decisions that will be made over the next couple months. What other states are involved?
I'm actually not sure. I'm pretty sure that this has been reported on, though. I know that it's happening, and I don't know the states that are in there, just that our people are participating in those discussions.
Do you have a sense that other social media platforms are cooperating with consumer protection investigations that are underway by your division?
I can't report on that right now, but I do know that there are conversations happening. What level of support we're seeing is still kind of remains to be determined. We started with TikTok, and we'll be moving through those.
Any thoughts on the unwinding process for our Medicaid program? There are tens of thousands of Utahns who have lost coverage because the state can't find them. Other states have put their processes on hold to reevaluate how they're doing things, but Utah keeps pushing ahead. Yeah, we are. Again, we're following the law. We're trying to do things by the book, and we'll continue to do that. We have been putting more resources towards helping those who qualify to go through the process. So that they can get qualified, and we will continue to do that. But we don't have any plans right now to pause that process.
Governor, should the state pay to build a gondola up Little Cottonwood Canyon? There's some estimates that put that at over $1 billion.
Yeah, we'll continue to look at that. I don't think the state should do it alone, and so those conversations will be ongoing. How much private participation can we get in building the gondola, and of course implementing the record of decision that has come forth from UDOT, which includes, previous to building the gondola, of course, enhanced bus service, and so we'll be taking that step, working on that, and again monitoring, seeing how that works as well as we move forward. Certainly, public transportation is within the purview of state government, and this is a public issue for those that live in those neighborhoods, and for Utahns all across the state who are trying to get up those canyons and to recreate. And so we'll look at that. We'll look at the price tag and make a determination how much much of that will be funded on the public side, and then if there are private partners out there, how much they're willing to put towards this project.
On the issue of transit, you proposed free fare transit as a pilot program in your budget last year. The legislature obviously rejected that. You going to try again?
We might. Yeah, we're looking at it for sure. I think some of you know we are in the middle of a very large-scale survey across the state about growth and what growth looks like. And I hope everybody. I know we've had about we've had I think about over 20,000, 24,000, something like that, people who have logged on and started to participate in that survey. And I should have it at the top of my list, but I know all of you will report it out. The actual website where people can go and take that survey. That's one of the questions is around transit. That's why I bring it up. And what people think about free fare and how we can grow smarter, how we can grow in ways that are less disruptive, how we can keep the quality of life high. And I was able to get a peek at some of the initial results, although the survey is not completed yet. And public transit is very popular, and people want more of it, and they want it to be less expensive. And so I'm hoping that when we get the final results back, we can look at policy that matches those results and take that to the legislature and make some additional proposals. And so it's definitely still on the table.
But it's not in your budget yet.
Well, my budget isn't ready yet, so we'll get down to the kind of the nuts and bolts of the budget in October timeframe. And that's when I'll see what do our revenues look like, where are we headed in the next year, and then I have to start prioritizing what I would like to see, and whether free fare rises to a high enough priority with the funds available remains to be seen.
Given that there is a lot of push for more professional sports teams to move into Utah, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, is the state going to have to cough up some money for stadiums or for facilities, infrastructure, things like that to support these things? And do you support that, the idea of the state having to help chip in for a stadium somewhere?
Well, I mentioned before that I think direct funding is problematic and something that I've never been in favor of. But there are other ways that the state can participate and help, and so those conversations will happen if and when we are awarded a franchise as a state, and we'll sit down with the people whoever gets that franchise. We'll start talking about what that looks like. We'll look at what is happening in other states, and then ultimately, through the legislature, we'll make a determination of what that looks like. I think there are some public interests adjacent to something like that. The idea of building a baseball stadium on the west side that has struggled economically for so long, and the renewal that could take place around that area is something that's been needed for a long time. There's absolutely a public interest in that, a neighborhood interest in that, a city interest in that, a county interest in that. And so what does that look like? How have we done this before? It's not our first time working with major league franchises. We've done it with the National Basketball Association and the Miller family. Building the Delta Center the first time around, I think that's very instructive, how that was done. I think if you look at MLS and the Real Salt Lake and their facility, I think you kind of get a feel for what something like that could look like in Utah.
But should taxpayers directly fund this?
Again, I don't support just writing a check and saying, here, we're paying for this stadium, but are there tax increment and credits that we could do to help develop the area around that? What does infrastructure look like? How do we we are in the business of infrastructure. That's what we do. That's what government does. We get infrastructure to the places where it's needed. And so if we can encourage something like that, and there's a return on investment, and Ben, I guess that would be the key takeaway from all of this. We do this often, we use taxpayer money to incentivize something to happen here, but we only do it when the return to taxpayers is going to be greater, right? So if the return is worth it, then yes, I'm absolutely open to those conversations. But if it's not, we're just not going to help, billionaires build stadiums. That's not what we do.
Okay. Looks like we're good.
Excellent.
Thanks so much for being
thanks
here.
to all of you. I would just end on this note. We have kids going back to school this week, including my daughter who started yesterday. It's crazy to believe that this summer is kind of coming to an end. I know we've got our colleges and universities over the next couple weeks who will be going back to school. I wish all of our students and families the very best. Hoping for a great school year for everyone. And we have a University of Utah football game coming up in 2 weeks against Florida. And to my good friend, former Ben Sass, we welcome Florida here to the state of Utah in a couple weeks. And we hope you go home losers. So good luck to everyone. I hope you have a wonderful end of summer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Survey across the state about growth.